you open up the crop NASS spreadsheet, you will see a table that looks like this. Instructions are at the top of the spreadsheet. You have the ability to edit any of the data in the spreadsheet, but for the most part, the only sections that you have to edit are in the yellow boxes on the furthest column. For some counties, there might be fertilization rates already specified in the yellow boxes, so there will be numbers in this column. That is the case if portions of your county also lie in the NASS basin and you've already completed fertilization reporting earlier this year for NASS and Falls Lake. However, if crops are fertilized differently in the Jordan Lake or Cape Fear portion of your county, this is the chance to adjust fertilization rates. So change rates if you need to, but otherwise we can move forward with the rates that you reported earlier this year. For most counties, the fertilization rate column in your spreadsheet is going to be totally blank, like the one you see in this example here. And that is where you will fill in fertilization rates for crop year 2023. All of the data in your crop spreadsheet here is for Jordan Lake reporting, and it is coming from publicly available National Agriculture Statistics Service, or NASS data. This year, crop data is pulled from two different NASS sources. So the 2023 annual survey, so you'll see information here, survey 2023, for the survey data. And the other data source is from the 2022 census data, which is published in the most recent year was published in February 2024. And so for the most part, annual survey data is used for corn, soybean, and wheat estimates. You might also have sweet potatoes in your spreadsheet. And census data is for tobacco and hay acreage. The reason why we're using census data for tobacco and hay acreage is that tobacco and hay acreage estimates are no longer generated on an annual basis by statisticians, which is why we're trying to incorporate the latest census data into numbers this year. As you can see in this spreadsheet, we do not report every crop that's grown in your county. We only capture data for Jordan Lake reporting from NASS that is available and that can be run through our nitrogen loss estimation worksheet accounting tool, or NLOO for short, and it matches the information that was done in the baseline period, because we need to compare apples to apples whenever we're comparing this latest crop year to the baseline for the Jordan Lake reporting process. So to orient you to the spreadsheet, there's overall planted acres for most of the crops, which is corn, soybeans, and wheat. Again, you may have sweet potatoes in your spreadsheet too. Tobacco and hay is actually acres harvested because the census does not have planted acre data. So the next best thing that we can catalog to identify hay and tobacco acres in counties is this harvested number. The hay is excluding alfalfa. There's a number of subcategories that the census data has for hay, so this is that specific category, which most closely matches the previous estimate for hay that was annually generated from NASS prior to that reporting change, which removed generation of tobacco and hay values on an annual basis. For annual reporting, we're looking to capture NLOO reportable crops that were planted and received fertilizer. So this includes, to the extent that the data is available, crops that were planted and harvested, in addition to crops that might have been planted but failed. For Jordan Lake reporting, we follow a standard cropland reporting methodology that was drafted when reporting first began. So this reporting methodology assumes percentages for the amount of certain crops that are grown in each of Jordan Lake subwatersheds. So you'll see in this column here, percent of crop grown in haw. So that's the percentage of certain crops that are grown in that Jordan Lake subwatershed, the haw. Again, Jordan Lake is split into 3 subwatersheds: the Upper New Hope, the Lower New Hope, and the Ha subwatersheds. The cropland reporting methodology that was drafted when reporting first began for Jordan further delineates corn acres specifically into percent of corn grown for grain and silage and percent corn grown in no-till and conventional management. Soybean acres are categorized into full season and double crop beans. So again, let's see for corn, grain, conventional, grain, no-till. In this example, all of the corn estimated in the county was grown for grain. In your own county spreadsheet, you might see that there's a silage conventional or silage no-till included in the totals there in the table in the table values there. So for soybean acres, again, those are categorized into full season and double crop beans. The methodology for approximating the amount of crops that were grown in Jordan Lake subwatersheds and that fall into those further narrowed categories is based on use and management. And again, they were established when reporting first began. So a long time ago. As a result, it may no longer be doing a great job in approximating crop acreage into those categories in your county's portion of Jordan Lake. So if that's the case, please just write a comment explaining what a better cropland reporting methodology would be in the optional comment space at the bottom of the sheet. So for instance, perhaps the percentage of no-till corn that was grown in your county should be increased, or double crop soybeans are actually only 70% of wheat acreage, not all wheat acreage estimated in Jordan Lake subwatersheds. So whatever it is, this is your chance to tell me what should be done to more accurately capture cropland activity in the portion of your county falling in Jordan Lake subwatersheds. Please do not mess with the percentages in that column. Or if your county has land in multiple subwatersheds, the multiple columns that have this information in there. Just capture any methodology changes that you would recommend are made to the designated space, the optional comment space in the bottom, if there is a change that you would like to see in the estimation process. Again, in the optional comment space, you might see some additional text in here. So there are a number of prompting questions that I've included just to prompt consideration or assessment of the reporting methodology for approximating specific things in your county. So for instance, in this example, one of the questions is all of Rockingham County corn grown in the Haas watershed for grain? If there is silage being grown, how much, and is it fertilized at the same rate as corn that was grown for grain in the county? So it's questions kind of like that that I ask for those completing the reporting to just consider. So if there are changes that need to be made, we can incorporate those. So again, the acres in each subwatershed are estimated by multiplying the total acres of a crop planted or harvested in the county by the percentage of that crop that is grown within the portion of the county that lies within one or more Jordan Lake subwatersheds. So this value by this value. Again, for corn, because it's further narrowed into some other buckets, it'll be split into conventional and no-till. So you'd be multiplying this value by this value by this value in order to get total acres. And again, some counties will have just the one column percent of crop grown in a specific subwatershed, but there might be multiple columns if you have land in multiple subwatersheds of the Jordan Lake watershed. Similarly, you might see some additional rows under corn for silage estimates in your county as well. You should be aware, although soybeans are only broken down into two subcategories, full season and double cropped, that in addition to those categories, NLU can capture acreage information for manured soybeans. So manured beans are not approximated in the standardized methodology for Jordan Lake cropland reporting that was established when reporting began. But with the swine and dairy assistance program closures happening, you may have some manured bean acres to report in crop year 2023 or in future crop year reporting that you complete in the Jordan Lake watershed, in which case we would like to be able to capture that manured bean activity. So if that is a situation that your county is in, please make a note in the optional comment section about any manured bean activity that has occurred or is planned to occur in your county, just so we can try and capture that in the best way possible through the nitrogen accounting that we complete. So the other columns that you'll see in this spreadsheet are fertilization rate columns. So this column, the first fertilization rate column, will be the fertilization rate from a previous reporting year. So the last reporting year that you guys completed data submittals for. So at this juncture, given that we're in right now in crop year 2025, and that fertilization rate was provided for crop year 2022, where about 3 years ago, that's what that fertilization rate was for. And I will be asking for fertilization rates in the Jordan Lake watershed from essentially 2 crop years ago, since we're in crop year 2025 right now. I'm collecting it for crop year 2023, which lasts from October 1st to September 30th of 2023. So just keep that in mind when you're looking and considering fertilization rates for specific crops. Again, for some counties, there might be fertilization rates that are already specified in the crop year 2023 column because those rates might have been what you reported for the NASS reporting that you completed earlier. Again, if there needs to be rate adjustments for the fertilization happening in the Jordan Lake or Cape Fear portions of your county, you can adjust those rates, just make those changes in this columns like you would normally. So there's not an example in this spreadsheet, but in some spreadsheets, you might see little notes or additional comments to try and explain things a little bit more. I do try to review uh, these spreadsheets and add little comments or notes in there if I need to collect additional information or just wanted to provide some more information on how values were arrived at or other things like that. So do try to review this spreadsheet and other spreadsheets that might be included in your folder for pasture reporting or crop reporting if you haven't already completed that for Jordan Lake this year. Read through all of the little notes and comments that have been added as you're going through the process of completing the spreadsheets. All right, so now that we've oriented you to the spreadsheet, we're going to go through the motions to fully complete the worksheet. So the first crop is corn in this example. So again, 2023 survey data shows that there is 3,100 acres of corn that was planted in the Rockingham County. For Jordan Lake reporting, the standardized methodology said that all corn was estimated to have been planted for grain. So we can assume that there won't be any silage that we will be generating acreage estimates or fertilization rates for. Again, if that's not the case, make a note in this optional comment space about what you think needs to be changed about the reporting methodology for some of those things. Next in the column is the percentage of that crop that was grown in the haw and management type, no-till versus conventional. So let's say that I think all of these numbers are appropriate. 62% of corn is grown in the haw portion of the watershed. A good estimate for corn that was grown in conventional management in Rockingham was still 20%. let's say that I'm fine with those percentages. So we'll move on to looking at the 2022 fertilization rates. In that case, last year, corn was reported to be fertilized at 110 pounds of nitrogen per acre. Um, in the email that you receive about reporting this year, regional agronomists will be asked to provide some fertilization rates for crop year 2023. District or NRCS or extension staff can add rates as well, or just review what the regional agronomist puts in. As long as it's a knowledgeable agricultural staff person covering the area that puts a rate into the crop year 2023 column here, that's fine. But let's say that in crop year 2023, folks were putting a little bit more nitrogen out on corn for this example, and we might be basing this on conversations with farmers or the regional agronomist or the field crop extension agent, in which case the recommendation is to go up to about 125 pounds of nitrogen per acre. So in that case, we'll just go ahead and edit the cell in that fertilization rate column and then move on down. Again, please note for fertilization rates that we capture both inorganic and organic applications. So if folks are putting out poultry litter on beans or corn or other crops, that does need to be captured, and or other forms of organic waste like residuals, etc. As I mentioned previously, there is a separate NLU category for manured beans. Manured beans are not approximated in the standard methodology, but we do need to account for them if there's manured beans that you're knowledgeable about happening in the county. So please make a note in the optional comment section about manured bean activity if there is any. All right, so we'll go through the same process for all the other crops in your report. So the next is, and we'll keep that 125 for no-till and conventional corn. The next crop is hay. So let's say that that rate, based on conversations with farmers, the regional agronomist, or the field extension agent, that rate got bumped up to 80 in crop year 2023. For full season soybeans, let's say that that was knocked down to about 15. For double crop soybeans, let's say that was remained the same. No starter fertilizer was being put out for beans at 0. Tobacco acres, that maybe was up a little bit at 80 instead of 78. And wheat was about the same. So let's say that that remained at 100. So again, all of the fertilization rates that you put in here, just base them off conversations that you have with farmers or conversations with field extension agent, regional agronomists. Regional agronomists can go directly into these spreadsheets and add rates to them. And I'm sure that it would be wonderful to have off the plate of some of the district staff that have done that in the past. So please add rates to the spreadsheet as your county feels most comfortable with. Regional agronomists, you can go ahead and just start adding rates into the spreadsheet, and district staff and NRCS staff that have access to these sheets can review those rates. But if they can also add them in or make adjustments if they think something's a little bit off based on their own knowledge of farmer activity in their county. All right, I did want to make a quick note about some of the percentages here. So for double cropped beans, you'll see that this is approximated, estimated the same as wheat. So this number is automatically corresponding with that number. And then the full season estimate is essentially the entire soybean acre planted multiplied by 20%, which is estimated the amount of soybeans planted that is in the HAW watershed, subtracting the double cropped wheat estimate for the amount of acres that are in the HAW in Rockingham County. So just keep that in mind. So you'll see that, this is multiplied by this, and then it subtracts this number. And the benefit of kind of splitting beans up into these separate categories is that they might be fertilized differently. So folks might be putting out starter fertilizer for full season beans, but they're not universally applying fertilizer again to double cropped beans. Depends on your county and farmer management behavior in your area. Sometimes it's the same, regardless of full season or double cropped. But this is just a chance to capture irregularities and fertilization rate if that is happening in your county. We do not use FSA data for crop acreage reporting for Jordan Lake. We do encourage staff to consult with FSA staff to get crop acreage reports that were grown in the county back in crop year 2023, which again, now that we're in crop year 2025, that was 2 crop years ago. Consulting the crop report might help you with other aspects of reporting this year, like the BMP spreadsheet. In the BMP spreadsheet, you're always asked to come up with a good estimate for the amount of unfertilized, unharvested cover crop that's grown in the portion of your county that lies in Jordan Lake subwatersheds. And sometimes the crop report can help you know what people are growing, where they're situated in the county, that sort of thing, to help you with estimating unfertilized, unharvested cover. It might also help you determine a better approximation methodology for silage or grain or double crop soybean acreage in your county that you can add details about in the optional comment space here. So, and with that, I think I can see that all my columns seem to be filled in that I need. I didn't feel the need to update anything in this optional comment space. So I'm just gonna not edit it, but let's say that I did want to have a recommendation change for methodology and say, actually, no-till corn um, has increased in the county. It is more likely that farmers in the haw are no-tilling approximately 90% of corn acres to 80%. So if you wanted to add a comment like that, you can. But for the purposes of this example, I'm not going to. But that is kind of what I would ask you to update if you did have a process or methodology change that you wanted to recommend or just make note of. So let's see if there's anything else that we missed, any notes or questions or comments in any columns. Again, instructions are at the top of the sheet, so we can just review those really quick. We've looked at the NASS crop data, we've filled in fertilization rates, reviewed the crop estimates, we wrote comments if we needed them, and if we haven't reviewed BMP data or pasture data, we would proceed there. So as far as this spreadsheet goes, this spreadsheet is up to date. After you fill out the BMP crop and pasture spreadsheets in your folder, just email me so I know that they've been done and I can start going back and double checking and making sure that there's not any accidental omissions or errors or those sorts of things in your county submittal this year. So with that, the spreadsheet is completed, and if additional spreadsheets haven't been reviewed or added to, then the next step would be to proceed to the other spreadsheets in the folder.